She sees through the door of the ambulance some familiar faces taking some items aboard ship that she just got out from. Greetings, this is Top Hat and Buttered Popcorn. My name is John Savers, I'm your host, and today we'll look at a recent film, Haunted Ship. Now this particular film was selected to be sort of in conjunction with the Ring, a film previously reviewed. In this particular film, there is also a little girl who is sort of ultra, but a contrasting style of this to those seen in The Ring. She is more in the type of the Casper the Friendly Ghost mode rather than some satanic presence as Samara was in The Ring. So we will go ahead and take a look at this particular film. It opens up with sort of unusual font for this particular period. Its style is that of a handwritten, each letter seemingly handwritten as opposed to printed. The color is a sort of a salmon or pinkish orange, and the whole thing is rather cheerful, and it suggests what we see on the screen. For as this font is being put forward, we see an ocean-going cruise line. It is seen first on a very bright day at sea from a distance. And the camera kind of slowly hones in on the vessel. The coloring is very bright, Technicolor-esque, and we know that the time period, or we'll learn that the time period is May of 1962. On board the ship, we see a crowd of rather posh people. This is an Italian line, fairly richly appointed. It is not one of those speedy English ships, but more of a leisurely type. And what is lost in terms of size and speed is compensated for by pleasant staff, a service-oriented staff, pleasing appointment. The ship looks good. They've spared little in the way of expense to make it comfortable for the posh, and it is a pleasant environment. Now, we see at this very opening a transition from the outside to an inside scene. A woman in a red gown. She's a very pretty woman, almost what you might call beautiful. And she has dark hair and eyes and kind of a light golden brown complexion. The gown is low cut and off shoulders, and she is singing a very pleasing melodic song to a gathering of the ship's guests, amongst which is a young girl that we take to be in the area of maybe 11. She is a rather proper young girl, but when offered the opportunity, such as a dance with the ship's captain, she has a great big smile she can give. Now, this whole opening scene with the very pretty woman singing her melodious song which seems to be a love song or something approaching this. We have wedded to her song in this melody harsher sounds. There's a cut to the outside of the ship, and we see a cable. It's quite taut. We hear things going amiss, apparently, in regard to the machinery of the ship. Inside, the cheerful guests are drinking and eating, some dancing. The beautiful woman continues to sing. We see the people being served by the ship's crew. We do note that amongst the ship's crew are a number of people who are dressed somewhat differently from the rest. And we do not quite understand why. We think maybe it has something to do with the task given them on the ship, some sort of uniform signaling. But at any rate, they all are going about doing their best to make the guests happy. Outside, a continuing metallic, ominous series of events. And it finally comes to a head when the cable snaps and shoots forward like a giant scimitar. And by this time, the dance floor is filled with people, 13 people, 14, quite a lot, including this little girl dancing with the captain. The cable passes through this dance floor area. We are sure that something dreadful has happened. There is a look on the dancers who come to a halt. There is this look of sort of nonplus or stunned appearance. They're just standing there, and then all of a sudden they begin to come apart. The little girl is dancing with the ship's captain, is noted, and his head slithers off the gravity, I suppose, but at any rate, it comes loose at the point of the incision, and all the others begin to twain at various points in their body, whether it be the neck or mid-torso or abdomen or lower torso. And they all fall down onto the ground in the dance floor, particularly in a great jumble of dismembered body parts, bloody and pathetic. We see, for instance, a woman who is cut off in half around the navel area, trying to reach over and get the lower part of her body and bring it back as if to reattach to her torso. Of course, there are horrified shouts and screams and so forth. The little girl does not seem to be injured. Now, the crew members who were slightly differently dressed seem to gather the other crew members and the little girl and the surviving people and take them to another part of the ship. Most of those taken are taken into a drained swimming pool below deck, lined up and killed St. Valentine's Day massacre style, and succumbed to their bullet wounds there. The little girl is taken to her room, her suite in the ship, and she is apparently asphyxiated, perhaps hanged in the process by this leader of these villains who are doing this. And she is left hanging in her closet as if a garment. Now, from this ghastly series of events, we cut from 1962 to the present. We are in the vicinity of Nome, Alaska. We have a salvage tug at sea, and we have our cast of main characters. Kevin Murphy is Murphy, the character played by Kevin Burns, is there. Juliana Margolis, who has a sort of a daughter-father relationship with Kevin Burns' character. Isaiah Washington is there, sort of the second mate, or first mate, and alternate helmsman. They have a couple of technical types to work, fixing up salvage ships and so forth. They encounter a blondish guy named Dutch and a brunette guy named Blinder, as I recall, both of whom sort of act in an otter-esque fashion, full of fun and whatnot. Now, they're at work in the sea. Juliana Margolis seems to be the head of the technical group. They're trying to salvage a vessel. I think the seas are becoming a little bit precarious. Murphy, the Kevin Burns character, cautions his crew that maybe they better come up and give up on this one and go back to land. Diving into the water, Juliana Margolis' character says, I'm not going to give this up after 3 months of work. So she goes down to kind of finish up the needed metallic splicing, welding, and so forth to cover a hole. Her two techie comrades join her, and they get the job done. So they're able to pump out the water and get the salvage craft back to Nome, and they're able to parlay this into some cash. So we get a camera cut to a tavern in Nome. Now I may say at this point that this is not an apparently expensively made film, but it still looks good. The locales consist of the tug salvage vessel, the ghost ship, which we knew as the Italian liner in 1962, Antonio Grassi, and this tavern. Basically, those are the three areas of action. So it does not seem to require too much expense in terms of sets. Now they're at this particular tavern at a table. They've just been paid. The money's out there on the table, and they are in good mood. It seems to me rather unwise, even though they may be a number of sturdy young fellows and so forth, to be flashing all that cash right there at the tavern. But at any rate, they do. They're apparently used to this routine. Murphy says to his crew, great job, guys, salute you, I salute you, and so forth. They clink beer glasses. The beer helps. They have, of course, brought in the salvage, their fish, as it were, from the sea. Turn it into dough, and so there is mental relief just from having accomplished the task that they set out to sea for. And also, the beer helps to sort of anesthetize the aching muscles and weariness that certainly must have built up in the process of being at sea and salvaging and so forth, even though the tug appears to be good sized and comfortable. There's a stranger kind of to the side. He apparently wants to talk to them. He comes over rather diffidently. He's a young, presentable man. He turns toward the Murphy, the Captain Murphy fellow, and says, I'd like to talk to you a moment. Let me buy you a drink. The Kevin Burns character looks at him and says, you talk to me, you talk to my crew. It may be said that Juliana Margolis has just previously interjected he doesn't drink. Now, not drinking does not in any way, shape, or form mean that the person is a reformed alcoholic. but it just so happens that this seems to be the case with Murphy, which we will have reason to suppose from events later on the ghost ship. At any rate, this young fellow sets forth his case. He is interested in doing business with Murphy and his crew, his salvage crew. They are shown pictures which he has taken. He identifies himself as a pilot in some fashion or other, who, while flying around the area of the Barren Straits, noticed this strange ship that seems to be an abandoned ship. It's quite a good-sized vessel. Juliana Margolis looks at it, says, well, it's huge. Someone says possibly a military vessel. But at any rate, it's 1,000 miles out in open sea, international water, so it is something which could be claimed by anyone who can grab it, assuming it's abandoned. Well, they talk about this a little bit. One of the guys, let's say Blender, says, what's your interest in this? And the stranger says, well, I want 20% of the action for the salvage of this vessel. They kind of roll their eyes at that and ask him to kind of give them a little moment. Murphy says, can you just depart here a little bit so I can talk to my people? So they began to talk about it. Now, Isaiah Washington's character is pretty much disinclined. He says something like, we've been out in sea for 6 months now, and I've got a little girl waiting. I'm going to get married, I got some money. I'm going to go for the honey. But Murphy kind of overrules. He's kind of drowned out, we'll say, because some of the other guys are interested in just how much money there might be and ask Murphy, how much do you think it's worth? Hard to say, says Murphy. Could be nothing, could be millions. He said, I do know this much, that when the sea gives you something, you take it. The sea can be cruel, but when it chooses to be bountiful, grab hold. Well, they do talk about it and put it to a vote, and the Isaiah Washington character, Greer, finally, sort of reluctantly, looking at the photo of his bride-to-be, agrees to go back. And they kind of clink glasses on that, as it were, and call the guy back and say, okay, well, look, we'll do it, but you don't get more than 10%. And this stranger says, well, I'm going with you then. And they say, no way. He said, well, look, there are at least 2 or 3 other salvage teams here. If I don't go with you, I'm going to get one of them to do the deal, and I'll go with them. Well, we'll learn subsequently that this guy runs a kind of salvage operation himself, a rather surprising one. At any rate, Murphy and his crew agree to let the stranger join them. From this, we get a cut to the open sea. They're on their tugboat salvage ship. It takes a while to get into the vicinity where the stranger had last seen the large vessel. Later, a team of about 5 or so go up aboard ship just to give it a first look. It's pretty rusted and worn and debris about. They go inside. I think we find in this scene Murphy and Margolis and the character Santos and I believe that the 2 techs, Blender and Dutch. Greer stands below at the helm in radio contact. They enter into the insides of this ship. They see strewn champagne bottles about, sort of suggesting that this ship may have some loot on it and whatnot. They look at the apparel and whatnot. It seems to be well appointed. I think that their appetite has been whetted. Now, Now they're talking in rather hushed tones, be careful, cautious with the deck floor because it may be corroded and you could fall through and that sort of thing. Be on the look, be watchful. So in this cautious and quiet mood, one of them touches the hand, rather large, with a medallion-like end, touches it, and there's this tremendous boing, and it created quite a shock, and I thought a very good effect. It was sort of a wake-up call to the audience that things are going to turn a little bit spooky here. Well, they do go into it, look about, make a notion about the problems. They go into it to get an idea, down into it to get an idea. Part of it is flooded a little bit, and going into this thing, one of the men, Blender, I think, goes through a floor plate, and he's sort of dangling below a large room, possibly the room that contained the drained swimming pool. At any rate, he grasps the side, and a couple of his pals, the crew members, grab his arm and shirt and so forth, amongst which is the Margolis character. And as she's kind of leaning, grabbing him, and looking down into the hole, she sees a little girl who sort of has this enigmatic smile looking back at her. Did I see what I thought I saw? She wonders as they get the Blender back up out of the hole. Well, they continue walking. She's looking a little stunned and thoughtful. The stranger who happens to be with them asks what happened. And finally, Margoli's character says, I think I saw a little girl. You saw what? Yeah. Anyway, they continue their investigation. In one of the rooms, they see a couple of boxes. Margoli's character kind of goes forward toward it, and out of the box, as they kind of lift the lid a little bit, teeming with rats, pouring out of rats. Margoli's kind of reels back, oh, I hate rats, and so forth. But they look further in. They have a hint that there's something valuable in there, and they open it up, and sure enough, it's stacked full of gold, gold bullion, I suppose 1 pound units. At any rate, it's thick with them, and there's more than one box. Of course, this brings up the question, what would rats be doing in that container of solidly packed cold gold? It's not nutritional. So therefore, we assume that it has a kind of symbolic meaning to it. And maybe suggest the dehumanizing effect of gold on people, and also suggests a problem which would reveal itself later on in regard to people who have been, shall we say, salvaged. We're rich, yay. So they're all quite happy about that. This is the bonanza. The sea has finally given them the gusher, as it were. Down low, the ship has some gaping holes, and they're able to later deduce that the ghost ship, so-called, has itself trapped in a circular current that at one point in the path comes very close to some rocks. It has apparently collided on one occasion. They theorize one more go round and it's curtains for the ship. It'll go down. I might mention here that these people seem to have no problem whatsoever going into the water. This is the North Pacific. It's in the vicinity of the Bering Straits. They don't seem to have any kind of problem with exposure, hypothermia, or anything of that sort. There is a mishap, and some propane is blown in the vicinity of Santos. It causes him to be set afire, and he runs flaming and jumps into the sea. The explosion also seems to fatally injure the Arctic warrior. We see Margoli's character leap into the ocean also, trying to save Santos and perhaps Greer. Now Greer is okay. They get back onto the abandoned cruiser, and it has now further damage, and the Arctic warrior goes down to Davy Jones' locker. We see Greer's character, and he has already gone to that ballroom area and had seemed to see a beautiful lady in red who, in his mind, seemed to be coming on to him. When he told this to the crew in the Arctic Warrior before he went down, they all started laughing and kidding him and said, "Greer, you're definitely not ready for marriage now." He goes to her. She has, I think, removed part of her gown. She's a beautiful, voluptuous woman. And he comes to her and he goes to embrace and kiss her and falls right through her. And is impaled about 2 stories below, 2 decks below, on some metallic things poking upward. Well, this does raise the question of why the kiss seemed to be real and the embrace was totally illusion. And she hears the voice and turns around to see the little girl, and the little girl mentions, that was her. Then kind of changes the subject. She says that her mother had made the dress that she's wearing, and did she think it was pretty? This little girl, we learned that she was on the way to New York to rejoin her mother and I think her mother's new husband, and that some bad people came aboard. And it is from her that Juliana Margoli's character learns that the stranger that is being referenced is somehow connected with the lords of hell, and that he is trying to get a ship of some 500 souls to take to hell. What is my conclusion? The little girl, the spectral girl, the friendly ghost, as it were, beckons her which way to go, and we have to give the devil his due.